Good evening, everyone. And it's so lovely to see the Prestige Auditorium so full and getting fuller. And welcome to this very prestigious event, the book discussion on The Witness to Power by Dr. Mathews Phosa. It feels incredibly strange to have my back to our esteemed guests, so please, I cannot do this any other way. So I apologize. Our Chancellor, Mr. Ivan Kampanani, members of Council, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Maluleke, our Deputy Vice Chancellors present, members of the EMC, members of Council, executives of the University, and a very special greeting to our honored guest, Dr. Mathews Phosa. Colleagues, students, and friends, good morning and welcome. It is my great honor as the program director, firstly to introduce myself. I'm Nalini Moodley. I'm the executive dean at one of the best faculties in the university, the Faculty of Arts and Design. I see all the nods, so thank you very much. But I'm here, and it's my great honor to welcome you to what promises to be a profound and reflective book discussion centered on the book Witness to Power by Dr. Mathews Phosa, a compelling and courageous work that not only chronicles pivotal moments in South Africa's democratic journey, but also bears powerful witness to the personal cost, ethical complexity, and moral courage required of leadership in turbulent times. This book invites us to think deeply about power, democracy, and the often difficult choices that shape our political lives. We are gathered today in the spirit of engagement, reflection, and dialogue, values that are deeply embedded, as you will definitely agree, in the culture of our university, the Tshwane University of Technology. As we reflect on the past, we also anchor ourselves in the present, and this moment allows us to consider how power is witnessed, exercised, challenged, and ultimately held accountable. Now let me bring the spotlight to our distinguished guest this morning, Dr. Mathews Phosa. I think you can give Dr. Phosa a warm TUT welcome. I have been reminded that it has to be a very short, sharp program, so I'm going to try and keep my comments very short and sharp, VC. Dr. Phosa is a prominent figure in our national history, a lawyer, a poet, a business leader, and one of the first 4 ANC negotiators during South Africa's democratic transition. He has served as Premier of Mpumalanga and as a member of the ANC's National Executive Committee. He is also an author of Conscience and Vision, who speaks, incidentally, 9 languages and has 2 anthologies in Afrikaans poetry to his name under the title, forgive me if I say this incorrectly, Dier die oog van 'n land. Now, I hope I got that right. Some of which have been prescribed in the school curriculum of our national matric syllabus. So our politicians become poets, they become language specialists, and the journey of leadership is a transformative one, to the point that in our school curriculum, we're not studying who Dr. Phosa is, but the literature and the poetry that Dr. Phosa has produced and offered this country. Dr. Phosa launched an English anthology, and I'm sure I'll pronounce this better, called Chance of Freedom on the 2nd of June 2015, and is the author of the book under discussion today, Witness to Power, which was released in 2024 and remained a bestseller until January of this year. Critically, Witness to Power fills in the missing pieces of South African history as Dr. Phosa reflects on what it means to serve, to lead, and to remain ethically grounded amid the pressures of political power. This book is not just a personal account, it is a vital historical document and a call to action to future leaders. And it's wonderful to see our future leaders in the audience today. It is especially meaningful that we are hosting this discussion here at the Tswana University of Technology, a people's university that is deeply committed to making knowledge work. As an institution grounded in both academic excellence and social relevance, we are proud to be a platform where such critical conversations can happen, where we teach, where we learn, where we research, and most importantly, where we reflect on society in ways that respond to the needs of our people. It gives me great pleasure to extend a very special welcome to our Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Tiniku Maluleke, whose own literary voice has recently contributed to our national intellectual landscape through his book, Faces and Phases. Prof. Maluleke's work invites us into his reflections on people and memory and identity, and it is deeply fitting that he joins us today in conversation about another work of memory and meaning. Professor Maluleke, for those of you who might not know, I'm sure there are very few of you that do not know, is a distinguished scholar, a respected public intellectual, and a leader committed to transformation in higher education. His endeavors with this Book of the Month project reinforces the importance of cultivating intellectual spaces where books become bridges between lived experience, political history, and the ongoing shaping of our society, all work that is critical in the life of a university. I'd like for you to give a warm welcome to our VC, Professor Maluleke. But before Prof. Maluleke takes the podium and as we open the event, I want to invite you to engage deeply with the themes of leadership, legacy, and resilience as shared by Dr. Phosa and echoed in our own institutional journey. Once the dialogue concludes, I will then just allow for a few questions. Please remain with us during the questions. Keep the questions short and sharp. We want to give as many an opportunity to ask questions and engage. And that will bring us to, I believe, a lucky draw. There is a lucky draw, Brenda? Yes, there is. There's something special there. So if you stay with us, you might get something. So engage with us this morning. And once again, colleagues, thank you all for being here. Now let the conversation begin. And now it is my great pleasure to invite to the podium a thought leader, a champion of transformative education, and our very own Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Maluleke, to share his reflections and introduce Dr. Phosa and officially open this important dialogue. Please welcome Prof. Maluleke.
So, Nalini, I come to the podium, right? That's the instruction. I'm not sure that I want to show him my back.
I like that.
So maybe I'll just sit here. So let me start by acknowledging the presence of Dr. Phosa in our midst. It is a real honor for this university and for myself, having grown under his mentorship, direct and indirect, especially in the years when I was at UNISA, virtually every single year when you were the chairperson of council at UNISA, I was at UNISA. Yeah. So we come a long way, but I've always been a few steps behind you. and learning from you. It really is an honor for us to have you at the Tshwane University of Technology. I also wish to acknowledge our chairperson of council, who is playing the role that you were playing when I was at UNISA here at the Tshwane University of Technology, Mr. Ivan Kambonani. He also happens to have been influenced by you in other ways, being a lawyer himself. I tried to introduce him to you and you said, no, don't bother, I know him. We know each other. I was told that Mr. Pakiso Mutau is here, the deputy chair, but I haven't seen him. There are other members of council in our midst. I won't mention them one by one. I was told that Mr. Sipoma Luleke would make it, but I don't think he has made it. Maybe he will join us in the middle of this program. I see several members of the Executive Management Committee of the university. I see Dr. Tlale, I see Dr. Ntangeni, I see Professor Van Wyk, I see Professor Dr. Vati, the DVC for research. I see Dr. Mabote. I see, and I'm very thankful to see so many members of the executive. Some members of the Institutional Management Committee have driven for 300 kilometers to be here. I saw the rector of our Limpopo campus. Raise your hand and show your face. There he is. He's come a long way. The student leadership is here. I believe that members of the ISRC, including the President General and the General Secretary, are here. I haven't seen them in person. And also representatives of the student faculty councils. There are also students who have come here who are studying journalism and integrated communication. They are particularly interested to engage with you, Dr. Phosa. Some come from public management, and there is an applied languages book club present here. There's a library book club and a writing book club. All these are student clubs who have come to listen to you. Thank you, Dr. Phosa, for allowing us to designate your book the VC's Book of the Month for the month of June 2025. I wouldn't be able to find words with which to thank you for taking South Africans into your confidence, the way you have done in this bold book that you penned. This is such an opportune time, or rather this at such an opportune time in the history of our country. Such a momentous literary intervention as the current political memoir of yours is of course not new to Dr. Phosa. As already mentioned by Professor Nalini, in 1996, when our democracy was 3 years old, Dr. Phosa produced such a literary tour de force that even Madiba was in awe, namely the Afrikaans anthology of poems, Deur die Oog van 'n Nald. And 10 years later, in 2015, he achieved the same feat with yet another poetic anthology in English titled Chants of Freedom. 10 more years later, here we are, gathered to celebrate a book that is taking the country by storm, namely Dr. Phosa's Witness to Power. And I'm sure I haven't mentioned all your publications. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to do the ones that are separated by 10 years between them. Let us start with the backstory, the human story, because I am supposed to do two things: introduce you and also say a few things about the book before your own intervention. The backstory and the human story. I would have liked to try to do something probably impossible. That is to try not to introduce the Dr. Mathews Phosa that we have known for many years along the lines I've already sketched, but to try and bracket and block out the noise of what and how we have known him, so that we focus on the Phosa that is in this book, which we are gathered to talk about today, the book that summoned us here, if you like. Although the Phosas originate from Butlokwa in Limpopo, Nakedi Mathews Phosa was born in the erstwhile Mbombela Township, an overcrowded location outside Nelspruit, where his parents had settled. I didn't know what Mbombela means until I read this book. I didn't realize that it means a place where people are just too many. Gandlanan in my language. That's what it means. Dr. Phosa is the third of 6 siblings, 2 of whom I think have already passed on in their youth, sadly. He is married to Yvonne Habile, also known as Pinky. In fact, in the book, the name that is used to refer to her is that one, with whom he went on to have 4 children. In 2020, the Phosa family, and I quote, suffered the most painful trauma when our beloved daughter Miyahabu passed away after a long illness. Dr. Mathews Phosa's mother, Rishokechi Phosa, used to be an industrious woman whom he describes as a woman whose laughter filled the village. To bring her children up and to provide them with as much supplementary homeschooling support as she could, Mrs. Phosa indefinitely postponed the start of her own profession as a trained nurse. She was a naturally born entrepreneur. She was a biscuit vendor, a maker and seller of ladies' hats, and a prize-winning retailer of a popular brand of pajamas. His father, Paul Phosa, was a teacher, principal, and serial builder of schools in the local villages of Mpumalanga. This thanks to his artisan training in carpentry, building and plumbing at Tiger Kloof College, and his training as a teacher, as well as his formation as a devout Christian at the Lutheran College at Botshabelo. Sadly, Phosa Sr. passed on in 1970 when he was only 54. Long before the young Phosa could either make sense of it, let alone protest against it, he suffered the consequences of apartheid legislation and its antecedents. For example, by 1968, the township of Phosa's birth, Mbombela, had been razed to the ground to make way for a mineral refinery. The people were moved to Kanyamazan, an episode that was repeated across apartheid South Africa ever since the promulgation of the 1913 Land Act and the legislation of apartheid, or rather the legalization of apartheid in 1948. When Nakedi Mathews Phosa was of school-going age, his parents sent him back to their roots at a farm called Polen near Mokopane. There, he was raised by his grandfather, Mathews Phosa Sr., after whom he was named. Mathews Phosa Sr. was a devout Christian and a strict disciplinarian. All through his time at Pollen Farm, through the Siepabana Lower Primary and Tserane Higher Primary, Grandpa Mathews Phosa ensured that his grandson was sheltered, was cushioned and shielded from the contamination of South African politics, especially the deadly risks associated with it at the time. But guess what? As soon as Mathews Phosa broke free from his grandfather's leash and became a high school student at Maripi in Akonhoek, he dived headlong into the furious river of South African politics, South African student politics, only to come out for air 50-something years later. Phosa's political memoir, Witness to Power, narrates that 50-something-year-old journey. It describes its zeniths and its valleys, its highlights and its lowlights, its virtues and its vices, its problems and its promises. If I were to give a title to my brief remarks, I would have called them More Than a Witness. Although the title of the book is Witness to Power, I would have opted for a title More Than a Witness. And let me begin with a quote from the end of the book, where Dr. Phosa says, and I quote, "In my own journey, I have tasted both success and failure. After serving my term as Premier of Mpumalanga, I was elected to the NEC of the ANC and later served as Treasurer General for a term. My nomination for Deputy President did not succeed, nor did my later campaign for the presidency of the party. In success and failure, I have learned a few lessons about the nature of politics in South Africa. I stand ready to make a contribution again, to see the Rainbow Nation soar. It is my duty and yours to answer the call, if and when it comes," end of quote. This passage is part of a repeated refrain in this ferocious book of rage and fury. I call it ferocious book of rage and fury. It's not the only thing about it, but that's how I would mainly characterize it. The book begins with a poetic preface designed to depict the author as a witness, all the way back to Mandela's inaugural presidency, a witness to the current GNU presidency of President Ramaphosa. And throughout that preface, he uses the catchphrase, "I was a witness, I witnessed. I was a witness when Mbeki became president and when he built a strong presidency. I was a witness when Zuma was elected. I was a witness." He goes on and on using this linguistic device. However, we must not allow Phosa's riveting poetry and alluring self-framing as a witness to power to seduce and intoxicate us completely. Ordinarily, the English noun witness conjures up the image of a curious spectator, a disinterested onlooker, a passive observer, an innocent bystander, or even an accidental eavesdropping outsider. Dr. Phosa was none of the above. His is the account of a participant observer rather than what one radio station calls an eyewitness reporter. He himself admits that his story is told from a privileged perch, except that the perch on which he was perched was inside, smack in the middle of the seat of power, some of the times at least. Because surely, the former premier of one of our 9 provinces, the most beautiful of our 9 provinces, if I must say, I know people from Cape Town will complain, but they haven't seen Mpumalanga. The former treasurer of the ruling party, a former member of the NEC, a former contestant for the deputy presidency and presidency of the former ruling power, a former advisor and confidante of Presidents Mandela and Zuma, and if you want, you can throw Mbeki in too, if you go back far enough. He who, when in 1994, Mandela was not sure whom to appoint as his deputy between Mbeki and Ramaphosa, was approached. Mandela approached him for advice to say, who do you think I should appoint between the two? And he advised Mandela accordingly. You can work out what that accordingly means. He who owns up to having been the crafter and mover of the NEC motion to recall Mbeki on 19 September 2008. He owns up to that. That is brave and maybe also dangerous. He who also owns up to having been the one who, upon being approached by former President Zuma for advice, managed to persuade President Zuma to resign in February 2018. He was one of the last people President Zuma spoke to before he decided or was persuaded to resign. He is a long-term legal opinionista, arbiter, and mediator of the ANC at home, underground, and in exile. He writes about his underground activism when he peddled soldiers and guns across the Swazi and Mozambique borders. He speaks about how he hobnobbed with African presidents, including Kwet Masire, Sam Nujoma, Gaddafi, Jibril, and many others. He is an MK commander trained in East Germany who drove around in a Mazda with a Makarov in his car, constantly praying that the police do not find that car, that gun. Where's the Makarov? He who taught Afrikaans to Mozambican spooks and security officers so that they could interpret the messages that were coming from Pretoria or what was going on in Pretoria. He who was both in the engine room and the cockpit of the negotiation process from beginning to end. And of course, I've already referred to him being chair of the Council of the University of South Africa, UNISA, from 2003 to 2015. Such a person may not, in my humble opinion, be accurately or helpfully described as a mere witness to power. I would suggest from page 1 to page 237, which is the last page of this book, Phosa's memoir provides overwhelming evidence, and this is me trying to be a lawyer, provides overwhelming evidence to the effect that more than a mere witness to power, he was a wielder, maybe not of all the power, but he was a wielder of some of the power instead of merely being a witness to it. Granted, Dr. Phosa being a poet, it is possible that the idea of being a witness to power is perhaps meant poetically and metaphorically. It probably is meant to tease, meant to provoke rather than to denote in any final sense of the word. Indeed, the classical Greek origins of the word witness is in fact the word martyr, from the verb marturia, meaning to bear witness. To bear witness in its original sense is to bear witness to the truth at the risk of torture and death. And insofar as this book accounts to his fearless denunciation of comrade and foe on matters of political principle, Dr. Phosa may indeed be regarded as a witness, but in that deeper sense of the word that I have just described from its Greek origin. I suggest that the heart of this book which is a book of 18 chapters. The heart of this book is found in chapters 7, 8, and 9. That's my reading. Chapter 7 is titled Premier of Mpumalanga, and it talks about that experience. Chapter 8 is titled Trouble in Paradise. If you like, you can say Trouble in Mpumalanga Paradise. And chapter 9 is titled Out in the Cold. So I would suggest that these 3 chapters are the heart of the book. These are easily some of the most emotional chapters in the book. Phosa's tenure as premier was both the zenith and the nadir of his political innings so far. Chapter 9, Out in the Cold, is particularly emotive. In that chapter, Phosa is scathing on Mbeki's Machiavellian leadership style, so that, and I quote, no one could be as tall as he was. If you catch the irony there. Now, earlier I described the book as a ferocious book of rage and fury. The ferocity and the rage of the book is often hidden between the lines, above and beneath and behind, in front of the seemingly benign and beguiling adjectives just before the punchline is delivered. Although he says it's water under the bridge, I think the incident of 24 April 2001, when the then Minister of Police, the late Steve Tshwete, may his soul rest in peace, announced on national television that Phosa, Ramaphosa, and Sekgwale were involved in a plot to harm and overthrow President Mbeki, only to withdraw the allegations on 4 December 2001, some 7 months later. I think this has left a deep mark on the conscience and heart of Dr. Phosa. And yet, I don't know how he manages. He finds something good to say about everyone in this book. There's not a single person about whom there's nothing good said. There's something good said about Mbeki, lots of good said about him. There's something good said about Zuma. There's something good said about Gaddafi. There's something good said about Botha, the Groot Crocodile. There's something good about everyone. And yet, he is also able to point out what went wrong, when it went wrong, with each of the people who are at the receiving end of his ire. I say it says something good, something nice about everyone, but this is not a book about niceness or niceties. You can feel the smoke, you can smell it, of anger in some of the pages in this book. In a sense, this book is an elegy. It's an elegy or maybe a eulogy to a beloved party that lost its way, and a failing, if not a failed state, which started with much promise. The author is devastating in his truthfulness, and yet amazing in the generosity he shows to friend and foe alike. Which brings me back to the quote with which I began as I finished my remarks. In my own journey, says Dr. Phosa, I have tasted both success and failure. After serving my term as Premier of Mpumalanga, I was elected to the NEC of the ANC and later served as Treasurer General. My nomination for Deputy President did not succeed, nor did my later campaign for the presidency of the party. In success and failure, I have learned a few lessons about the nature of politics in South Africa. I stand ready to make a contribution again to see the Rainbow Nation soar. So clearly, this book is about more than a mere witness to power. Could it be the political manifesto, the book that is, of one who is ready to stand again, to serve? Could this be Dr. Phosa's version of Barack Obama's The Audacity of Hope, which was but a thinly disguised election manifesto? Somehow, this book does not read like a goodbye book. My Afrikaans is not very good. But from time to time, Dr. Phosa sprinkles the pages with Afrikaans poems and idioms, none of which are translated, as if to say, if you don't understand this, it's your fault. One particular idiom caught my eye, even though I don't quite understand its meaning. And it goes like this. Meng yourself met die semels en die varke vreet jou op. Nou wil ek vra, en die leidende vorm, Dr. Phosa, word u deur die varke opgevreet? Thank you very much.
I've never ever heard you say never. It's unique.
Thank you.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
I'm done.
I suppose we can all go now. After that amazing, thoughtful, insightful, humorous reflection on the book, I think it's time that we hear from the author. But please, a round of applause for our Vice-Chancellor and his brilliance in digging deeper and finding the various refrains. Over to you, Dr. Phosa.
I'm tempted to give the Vice Chancellor a standing ovation. I'm surprised you are not giving him. That's why I'm standing. I've not had, Prof, anyone analyzing this book in such a penetrating way. I've not had. We've been all over many universities in this country with this book. This is special. Thank you very much. I want to start by paying tribute to Ngungi Watiyogo. Yes, but now you allow me to give him my bag. Yes. Is that on? Yeah. I was saying I want to start by paying tribute to Ngungi Watiyogo, one of the greatest African writers who died this month. He taught us that the power of language and literature in shaping identity and resistance, what it is. Ngungi's experiences with colonialism and its impact on African cultures. The importance of preserving indigenous languages and cultures. the role of writers and intellectuals in challenging social injustices. You young people will say he was woke. He was committed to social justice through his work. We must remember him in that context. He touched our consciousness as Africans in a book, Decolonization. Decolonization is the mind. Now, here are some of my reasons I wrote my book, Witness to Power, before I go into the details. To fill the gaps of history. History has no blank pages. It does not have. And it's very important that we write our own history. It's a simple statement. But we must write, otherwise we're going to read about Shakespeare until we turn 100. And therefore, Witness to Power, like the book written by vice chancellors and others, are very serious attempts to tell our own stories, to write our own history. Many, many people wrote history about us without us. And it's wrong because we remain silent. I'll come back to this. The second reason is the victors of yesterday is not the victor of today. The wheel turns like that. Great men and women make big mistakes. We should learn from those mistakes. Professor referred to the plot. You can see how many mistakes were made. In the first instance, it was false, but it was painful. And I'll come back to that. To help you think about what is leadership. I was saying to the professor that I was at the sound audio engineering school last week, talking to the students about leadership. And they engaged me, and I like to be engaged. We need to tell a few stories about great men and women that we have met in our lives. And I tell those stories to reflect about our past presidents. I'll come back to the other reasons. You take this book, I've served 5 presidents. I'm now dive into it. I was lucky. I met Mandela when I was in exile. He was just visiting there, his first visit. But he wanted to see me. Because when he was in prison, I skipped the country. And he said they didn't like that as the elders of the ANC on Robben Island. Because I was defending many political activists. So they felt I should have stayed in, but they understood. But he wanted to see this cheeky young man. So I went to see him. He said, what I want to tell you is, I'm going home with you. You're going to be one of my advisors. So, me? One of your advisors? Where am I? He said, you're going to be. And indeed, 4 weeks passed. I was flown into South Africa to come and start negotiations with Pendle Madonna and Jacob Zuma to surround Mandela. Just want to give you a whole history, to be his second brain, literally, every day. So that's not a witness, that's a participant. The professor is right. It's right. I want to tell you a story about how I arrived, because the others arrived before me. I was a commander in the army. I was at the border of Mozambique. I was fighting. I was flooding the country with soldiers and guns and propaganda material. From Maputo to Tofimvava to KZN. It was my job every day when I woke up to engage, to bomb the police and the army. And I did it, and I'm not apologizing. They're a bunch of naughty people. I did it for my people, you know. And they said, stop it. Stop it. It's time for peace. It was like a switch off. And I was very suspicious. Why do they do this to me? These guys are hunting me, but I said I must go to them. They're going to say, aha, good catch. He's back home to jail. Where he ran away from. Okay. I flew in through Botswana. You must remember there were no cell phones then. Later, the bleepers came. Prof, you remember? There were no cell phones. You couldn't WhatsApp, and you didn't know what WhatsApp means. Didn't exist. So I met Botswana at the airport. I phoned my former partner, Judge President Mujapelo. Say, I'm coming there. Come and meet me at the Jan Smuts Airport. Before it was baptized or Tambo. So I fly in. I'm looking at this country as I come in. I said, but this country is very beautiful, you know. It's worth fighting for and dying for. It is beautiful. I don't know who's going to meet me. Thabo said to me, some guys will meet you. So I'm sitting in the aeroplane. A tall guy comes there, walking, he's looking around. He sees me. He says to me, are you Mathews Phosa? I keep quiet, I don't react. But that was not my name in exile. My name was Freddy. So he says, are you Freddy? I said, yes, I am Freddy. I thought myself the juice of it. So he says, we'll come to fetch you. I said, who are you? He tells me. I said, who sent you? President de Klerk sent us. Okay, I think I can trust you. So I walk out. I'm carrying a sling bag. In the sling bag is 2 trousers, 2 pair of shoes, 2 underwears, and the boots I was wearing and a little jersey. No jacket. I walk out. They opened the boot of the plane, Prof. They said, point out their luggage. So what do you mean luggage? Here's my luggage. I'm carrying it. So he says, no, Mr. Phosa, here are the suitcases. Which one is yours? I said, none of them are mine. This is mine. There's a queue of cars on the tarmac. They would give us your passport. I give them Ugandan passport. Oh, where do you get this from? I said, from Uganda. What's wrong with you? It's my name. They really was getting confused. So they went in. They didn't let me go through the exit. Mujapelo is sitting at the other part waiting for me. I don't appear. They whisked me behind. And when they were about to reach Lanseria Airport, they said to me, Mr. Phosa, we're taking you to Flak Plus. You know Flak Plus? Now, they knew that 2 months ago, I was one of those who interrogated Derek Kutsie, who was a killer who had defected to us. So they knew what fear it would put in me. And all I said to them, because we trained, I'm an intelligence officer as well, not just a soldier. I said, well, you win. They went cold. They said, no, it's not so serious, we're joking. I said, but that's a sick joke. You're telling me that you're going to take me where they kill people. I mean, it's very sick. The next thing they take me, there's Zuma and Maduna there in Kennegan. Oh, guys, what are you doing here? Staying still in another seat. They said, well, come and join the traitors. So we joined. That's how we began to work with Mandela every day, building towards Grooteskier Minute, the CODESA, and all those things that happened. That's how we started. Until 4 years later, we produced an interim constitution. And all the arguments which were there are carried in the book. You know, very serious argument about whether the state is, what happens to the Bantustans, whether the state will be federal or not federal. What happens to the army? I mean, you had to write the first word in a chapter of the Constitution. But I wrote the first word in the police chapter, you know, and other chapters. We have to start afresh and say, yeah, guys, this is a list of apartheid laws. What do you do with them? Scratch out. Don't even debate them. Just remove those laws. Sweep them out within a wheelbarrow. So that we have to clean the deck. So we start with new constitution, new laws, which are human rights sensitive. That's what we had to do. We did that. But you work with a man who tells you every day, Nelson Mandela, a university of life, I call him, who tells you every day, I will make peace with my enemy. I don't need my friend for peace. I have that peace. But I don't have peace with my enemy. So I need to make peace with my enemy. Explaining why he's talking to de Klerk. We are young people getting angry. He says, guys, you must rise above your anger in life. You know how difficult it is? Rise above your anger. Just be bigger than your anger. When you tell him about challenges, that adversity is the breakfast of champions. Did you hear? Adversity in life is a breakfast of champions. You must embrace adversity. One day I was very angry. Professor Maluleke will remember they were killing Songo Zizwe. And Mandela couldn't accept that. No one could accept that. But I'm a commander, I'm armed. I've got people armed on the ground. I can give them an order to retaliate anytime. I knew how to trigger it. And I said to Sisulu and Mandela, guys, you're too nice. Unleash us. You know what Mandela said? Young man, don't think with your heart, think with your head. Do you understand the lessons? Whenever you think with your heart, you regret it. Yeah, don't think with your heart, think with your head. Guys, this is hard for us young people. They say to me, remember your duty. You stop making war, young man. Now you must impose peace on violence. Did you hear the various lessons? They're tough lessons, eh? But that's what Mandela carried. And we went through many other experiences with him. You know, he always reached out. He always found consensus where people found it difficult to find consensus and moved the nation forward. It was difficult, but he had to move it forward. You know, I remember one time there was a very difficult thing about political prisoners. One of my jobs was to get these guys out of jail, all of them, and I did. Maduna's job was to bring all exiles back, and he did. Without my support, with his support. Mandela was saying, one day we went to Robben Island. For some of the colleagues, you won't believe the story, but it's true, Prof. They didn't want to get out of Robben Island. Yeah, they said, no, you are outside you now, you are traitors. Mandela didn't sign an indemnity form. Why do you ask us to sign indemnity? We want to walk out. They were swearing at Sisulu. I went with him to Robben Island. I never seen that old man being so humiliated. I couldn't take it. He goes back, he doesn't talk back, keeps quiet. He goes to tell the young man Mandela, go fix those guys. So Mandela says to me, let's go back. At night, we fly, 4 o'clock, Cape Town. Robben Island on a speedboat. Those guys were told Mandela's coming for the first time in Robben Island since he left. They're all out there. He says, guys, there's a challenge of the new elections. We must get out, go and build our parties and build democracy. You are a bunch of cowards sitting here. Get out. Before he finished his speech, he said, Commander, we're signing, we're getting out tomorrow. He didn't beg them. He told them, you must get out, you're cowards. Firm, clear leadership. You know, leadership must be decisive. Any leadership which is not decisive, it's weak leadership. It must be decisive against crime, against corruption, against potholes, against load shedding. Are you listening to me? You must remove those things. That's leadership, which is required in any situation. Now, that was Mandela. Thabo Mbeki come on the scene, and that professor makes all the point. Him well on the economic front. Give him credit. Don't be jealous. He did very well in the economic side. He had this mistake on HIV and AIDS. 300,000 people died while he was denying. It's unforgettable. Those are mistakes. There were all these stories about the Hocha plots, which are going to eat him up at night. Didn't exist. But those are small things. Professor was there when we opened the Mbeki Institute at UNISA. It was very reconciliatory, and I was the chairman of council. He was there when we started the first, until today, the only presidential library from Mbeki. Professor was there when we went to Ethiopia, and he addressed our crowd with President Meles to set up the first postgraduate university in Ethiopia. Is that an enemy? No, he's my president. That's why he says I end up reconciling with everybody, even after the plot stories. Then came the dramatic Mr. Zuma. The divisions in the party, which you see today, and I'll analyze it for you, are not new until MK. They're old. We went to Polokwane, and I'm saying in my book, do you know what Polokwane is in Sotho? Polokwane. We went there, divided, with two big factions, singing against each other. Singing against each other. The songs were tailored to sweat each other. It was bad. You could feel the heat. Eh? And these big titans were fighting for power to be president, all of them. It was bad. I'm spending time on the politics. That's the beginning of the problems we have today, part of them. They were boxing each other in that conference. And we could feel here, only one must win, but whoever loses is not going to give up. You know that type of thing. Zuma won, Thabo lost. When he left Polokwane, he decided, to hell with Zuma and his NEC. I don't care about them. I'll govern the country alone. That's what he did. He didn't attend any meetings of the NEC. He just wanted to honor the president. And that created a lot of tension in the party. Prof, in terms of the NEC constitution, you have to attend officials meeting, NWC meeting, NEC meeting, if you're a president. Whether you are alone in power, it's written like that. He didn't attend. He just thought, well, with all of you, the Polokwane lot. So the tensions increased. And that's why when they had this NEC, they were arguing from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, in the morning. 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 a.m. I was getting tired. I never said a thing for those hours. I just wrote that resolution that said, guys, let's not be cowards. What you are saying is the following, that you don't want him anymore. Is that what you are saying? Yes, it's what you are saying. Why don't you say it then? Then they said it. Then Becky was very gracious, by the way, give him credit. He didn't hang on power. Like other people who want to kill for power. Mbeki was gracious. He moved out with dignity in front of the nation. It was the most painful moment. That's where I say in the book, we buried the ANC in Polokwane. Ribulukile onamola. You understand? That's where then the division continued like that. COPE was formed. This side later, little Malema squeaked away. And then UDM, of course, had gone away earlier. So the ANC continued to hemorrhage, just like that. Maybe UDM earlier. It went on. But Zuma had to reach his end point. And that time, when the Nkandla thing was known, we took a stand. Prof, the reason why we opposed him in that conference, it was of Nkandla. We said we cannot stand and support this man to be president with all these scandals. We have to oppose him from officials. It was a moral standpoint against him. And we don't apologize again. Because Nkandla was thinking. With the swimming pools, we are called all sorts of names. We all know the history. And then, what happened was, when the judgment of the court announced Nkandla with all his ugliness, I was the first one in Palabora. I was about to address the Chamber of Commerce. And my speech was very innocent. But when I heard the judgment, I thought, no, I'm changing the speech. What did I change? I'm calling on Zuma to step down now. I was the first ANC leader or anyone in this country to call him to step down. That night, he stopped talking to me for 5 years. He didn't respond to my email, nothing. He cut me out of his space. I didn't mind. When I left, I was a businessman. I went back to a businessman. I know how to swim in the pool. I went back. I continued my business. Then the conference comes. Cyril is elected while he's in power. Right? And then Cyril is waiting in the wings. He wants to be the president of the country, and you can't blame him. He's elected in the party. So the two of them sit and meet. Now I'm giving you the politics inside. So, and Zuma says, Cyril, I want to introduce you to BRICS leaders. Cyril said, yes, it's okay. You must introduce me. He says, I'll introduce you to the AU leaders. He said, yes, You must introduce me. That would be very nice. Then they go on and on like that. It says, so it will take 6 months for me to still stay as president and you being on the side. Cyril says, yes. Did it happen? When Cyril went to the NEC, they said, are you mad? You are the president. This man must go. So he must go to Zuma and tell him he must go. By the way, Zuma has not spoken to me for 5 years. These politicians. He calls me 5 minutes before Cyril walks into the meeting. Hey, Baba, I'm about to meet Cyril. I need your advice. How? After 5 years? He talks like we've been talking every day. He is laughing. So I said, okay, let me listen to him. He tells me what I've just told you. I said, you and Cyril ethically are conflicted. You cannot decide when you leave or when he comes in. It's a matter for the NEC to instruct you. I said, you remember Thabo? He left because of an NEC decision. You must follow the same precedents. You cannot be a judge in your own case. You're likely to make mistakes. Let the NEC judge the facts. So, what happened? He says, okay, I knew you would say that, but I'm saying it. And I think it's ethical that way. So Cyril walks in. He looks like he's a wise man. He says to Cyril, no, I think we must leave it to the NEC. He didn't realize I'm setting him up in a very subtle way. But I knew the NEC doesn't want him. So Monday, she's dying herself laughing. Monday, he goes to the NEC. They go to the NEC. Exactly what I thought. They decide this man must go. Even the newly elected cabinet minister did not stand by him. They turned against him. That Monday, at 8, I get a call from a bodyguard. Ubaba says, he wants to call you, don't sleep. Okay, let him call. Then it's going to be the following day, he's going to call me. No. At 9, he doesn't call me. I change into my pajamas. I want to sleep. A call comes 9:30. Ubaba says, you must come to Mahlambanlo. Just like that. When I have not seen him for 5 years. At night, for that matter. What does he want to do with me? That's when you witness power and experience it and participate in it. I might change the title of my book, Prof. I drive there, pick up one young man I trusted just to have a witness, with me, a small witness. I walk into that house, the big house, Mahlambanlo. It's quiet. There's not even a fly flying. Nothing. It's quiet. There's only water on the table. I don't take alcohol, of course, he knew, so he left it with water. So he walks in there. Hey, Baba Kunjan, as if we had been speaking, but 5 years we didn't speak. It's just like, it didn't matter. Oh, okay. Now, I also said, I'll play the game. So he shows me court papers prepared by a firm of lawyers to interdict the National Assembly the following day from firing him. Hey, those papers were filed in court. Yes. Oh, my God. So the papers were based on Section 98 of the Constitution. If you look at the Constitution, Section 98 says a process of impeachment. But the process the following day was not impeachment, was 50+1, which is Section 200, which the ANC could have done without the other parties. So I explained to him, Mr. President, these lawyers are misleading you with respect. As lawyers, when we don't want to show you no respect, we say with respect. It's very sarcastic. He said, what? I said, look at the Constitution, you wrote it. This is the process tomorrow, Section 200. The ANC can vote alone against you and fire you in Parliament, and you're going to humiliate it. Okay, now I see. I said, you don't mind us phoning your lawyers? He said, no, don't phone them. Now he realizes there's trouble really coming. There's no story of impeachment driving around in court, in Parliament. He said, what do you think? I said, Mr. President, I've never misled you or Mandela. I'm going to say to you now, this is time to live with honor and save your pensions and everything. and your own family, the dignity of your family. He said, but just like that, I said, you have to go. Then the discussions went all over the night. The next thing, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. And that morning was Valentine's Day. And I said, Mr. President, but no business politics. It can't be. We have to finish this discussion now. So I warned him that I've spoken to 5 presidents who were his friends. And I was about to ask them to come and tell him to go, because he was not talking to me. He said, you did that? I said, I did that. And you can phone them. Here are their numbers. President of Brazzaville, Sasamgeso, Kikwete of Tanzania. I've spoken to them. I've asked them to intervene in this country and said to tell her to go. But now for the chance, I'm saying you must go. He said, Baba, I'll go. But I gave him a formula. I said, because you are so bitter about what Cyril promised you, tell the country what makes you bitter. Be open with your nation. Say to them, we agreed like this with Cyril. That's why I was going to wait for 6 months. Now he's 10 against me, so I'm angry, but I have to go. Tell the country. You will remember, number one, he was going to have a press conference at 10 in the morning. I canceled that. I said, no. Those journalists must be told, you are no longer going to wait here. You're going to go. Didn't happen. 12 o'clock, he has a press conference. He speaks a lot of these things I'm saying. Maybe you've forgotten. But he doesn't resign. I'm waiting there. When is he going to resign now? This old man is not listening. So I'm tired. I slept at 3 a.m. So I go and sleep that day. At 11, I see on my phone, someone said, hey, at least he listened to you, one of my closest friends. Who listened to me? Oh, he resigned. So I opened the TV. Oh, thanks, hallelujah. He's resigned. At last he resigned. That was what happened. But he was kind enough to invite me 3 weeks later to Mhlanga Rock, to one of his wife's homes, for breakfast. It's a very interesting story. Maybe I should tell you. It's an African story as well. So, I mean, this guy invites for breakfast. He got Ace Makashura there and others, his friends. To thank me, he says no one was brave enough to tell him in his face to go. But this guy told me, as usual. Mr. President, I didn't think it was such a big deal. Okay, thank you very much. Now, we must eat breakfast. Don't laugh at me. But there's no trust. So then I was like, I'm only saying. So there's a lot of food there. So I said to my husband, I don't think I want to eat this food. He says, what do you do? We're going to eat. I said, no, man. I said, I'll give you a formula if you don't trust someone. We walk behind him. What he serves in his plate, we serve. What he does not serve, we don't serve. If he jumps scrambled eggs, we jump it. So it's a formula. So we go. We come back, we sit down. He doesn't know we jump other food. He's laughing himself to death. That's what we did. I'm just telling the story. I'm just a proper witness who's a participant, like he's saying. What happened? Then when we left, fast forward, Zuma is gone. Fast forward, we got Palapala. I'm just showing you what I did. And then there's this big story about Palapala. I keep quiet. I can be very forensic as a lawyer. The chairman knows. He knows. He's a fellow colleague too. So I'm watching this movie about what commission? Was it Trapo Commission? What was it? Not Zondo. The commission that came out with the Palapala report, whoever it was that judge. Now we sat back in my law firm and analyzed that report carefully. That report was so legally defective. And from an auditing point of view, defective. I'll give you an example. In that report, they say there are 8 institutions investigating the current president, but we did not talk to them. Why? How can you arrive at a conclusion about him without talking to those who are talking about him, who have been investigating him? They didn't talk to the Reserve Bank to find out what we call in auditing paper trail. The auditors will know here. The paper trail must tell me where the money came from up to the president. I mean, that's scientific, it's common sense. But how can you arrive at conclusions? You could either have said, give me more time to investigate and we'll understand. But you don't come to conclusions about the president without proper investigation. So I said, this is konkelwerk. That's the word I used. This is konkelwerk. And of course, that report was never accepted by Parliament. The chemistry changed in Parliament. It changed even in the ANC conference that was coming out. One of the leaders of the ANC said to me, I don't know what we would have done if you didn't speak. Because their thinking had jammed about what to do. But the fact of the matter was, and I spoke to Tito Mboweni, may his soul rest in peace, a very good friend of mine. I said, Tito, you are a man of numbers. How do you make of this? But Matthew, there's no audit report, an audit trail. I spoke to the Reserve Bank governor. I said, but there's no audit trail. You can't arrive at any conclusion here. The matter is still open for investigation. That's what happened there. The following morning, that evening, I'm called by the president. In fact, I called him. I said, because he was my classmate. He's my younger brother. And he worked for me before. You like it or not? I was his treasurer. He was my chairman of my audit committee. Cyril Ramaphosa. He worked for me. I said to him, who's advising you legally? He says, no. I called Judge Maybach. I said, give me his opinion. He gives me. I said, this is nonsense opinion. I would like to give you my opinion. I sent it to him. He said, this is a bomb. How will the country know about it? I said, I'm going on the newsroom. I'm going to speak. He said, are you going now? I said, I'm going now. He said, please send me the clip. I said, I'll send you. And I went, boom, on newsroom, national news. And that cooled down and sobered the discussion about Palapal. The following morning, I got 2 phone calls before 8 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, my brother. Right? Again, saving another president to leave the next day. This is what I did. That's based on ethics, based on the truth. Not because he's a former classmate, but just looking at the facts. And the facts must lead us all the time. If we are led by emotions, you heard earlier, our hearts would like to make mistakes. That's the lesson. So this journey with this president, I thought it needs to be shared, right? And further things like when I was premier, what I went through and everything, but shared without bitterness. Shared to tell in a humble way, to promote understanding, reconciliation within ourselves. To thank those I walked the path with in my life. To share laughter about our own mistakes and stupidities and our wisdoms. There are many amusing things that we've been laughing, and I told you laugh. There's no way you cannot laugh if I talk to you. To try and put matters in context in history. Like I said, unless we tell our story, no one will tell it the way we will tell it. They will tell it the way they want to, and they will make us look like we are these corrupt African people, these thieves, these funny people. We must tell our own story and admit our own mistakes. There must be integrity in what we say. We must not lie about what. If you think, this is as I close, Prof. If you think you've heard from me the last word, you are mistaken. In terms of books, I started writing Witness to Power 7 years ago. At the same time, I started writing another book. I won't mention its title. 10 years ago. So in the next 5 months, another one is coming. Another one is coming. It's a very serious attempt to tell history and tell it more. So it's coming. I'm not hiding it, and it's going to be very scintillating. And I'd like Vice Chancellor Maluleke to analyze it like he skinned this one today. It was beautiful. Give me a hand again. Beautiful. Yeah. So, and even after that, there'll be more books. I can see them. Because I want to write those books and share with posterity. We need to share. I said to the students last week, that if you want to leave a legacy, it must be knowledge. You must share your knowledge, what you know, with the other generation, and let them interrogate it the way they want. What I don't mind, let me tell you as a writer, I don't mind someone differing from me. I welcome that, because I'm a Democrat, and I would like to hear other views from other people who differ from me. And I respect their views, and I respect their right to differ from you. In conclusion, when Rosa Luxemburg defined democracy to Vladimir Lenin during those days, and she said to Vladimir Lenin, Comrade Lenin, do you know what democracy is? He says, what do you want to say, lady? He says, democracy is your duty to defend my right to differ from you. That is democracy. The day you think I have no right to differ from you, that's the end of democracy. Thank you.
I think we can give Dr. Phosa another round of applause for that presentation. I don't even know where to begin and how do we wrap up this presentation, and I'm sure you're all bursting with questions, but perhaps just to say, what a call to action. What a call to live with honesty and live with integrity, and really to nudge ourselves to tell our own stories in the spaces of silences. There are too many silences and too many others telling the stories from outside. We need to start telling stories from inside. Let us own our own narratives. But Dr. Phosa, for all the humor in which you've taken us on this riveting journey from bombs in other countries to Robben Island to Nkandla and to Phala Phala to potholes and load shedding. It has been such a delight to listen to you. And indeed, colleagues and friends and students, today we are witness. We are witness, and I have a whole list. We are witness to greatness. We are witness to living legacy. We are witness to integrity, witness to purpose, witness to honesty, witness to bravery, but most important, we are witness to history. So you are so honored to be here and hear these words from someone like Dr. Phosa, who had the ear of so many presidents. So I think certainly a round of applause for you being here and for listening to such greatness. Thank you. I think we have to, I'm very mindful of time, but it's not often that we get the chairperson of our TUT Council in a room with us. And it will be such a pleasure and an honor for us to give our chairperson of council, Mr. Ivan Nkambonani, a moment to share a few thoughts. Chair of council, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Professor Nelini Moodley. The Vice Chancellor has elected not to give Mathews Phosa his back, but I thought it was proper, Doctor, that we both give him our back because we are from Mpumalanga. I thought we'll collude against him. But inevitably, it seems as if now I end up giving them my back. You know? It seems as if the collusion did not work, Doctor. I see Deputy Chairperson of Council. I see some members of Council present here, senior management present here, and VC colleagues and Dr. Phosa. Thank you very much for blessing us with this, with your presence, and thanks for the book. I must confess that I did not have an occasion of interacting with the book, but I will be the first one to acquire the book and also interact with the book. I trust VC when he says the book appears to be ferocious, and that will make me to be the first one to attempt to look at the book. But at the very same time, I was unsure when interacting with the book whether it will be safe to have a different view because at some point Dr. Phosa was a Makarova carrier. I don't know whether my views will not be taken differently, Doctor. And look, I knew Dr. Phosa at a very young age, since 1994. At the time, I was a student leader at Emalahleni at Technical Pretoria before it was TUT, and we were causing chaos with COSAS and SASCO mobilizing the students without permit. So Dr. Phosa has influenced us to take education seriously as young stars of Emalahleni and Witbank, with the likes of Jackson Mthembu. I am so lucky to have interacted with him as a student leader, and also he has encouraged us, to prioritize education, and he argued at the time that education is the only thing that can change the lives of young people, in the country, and also interrupt intergenerational poverty. At the time, as I said, that he was a premier, he guided us on a number of issues, and we indeed value your contribution that you have made to the country, the contribution that you have made to us as youngsters of Mpumalanga, and we have indeed emulated you, and we want to indeed espouse your leadership style and the values that you also left with us. We agree with you on issues of decisive leadership, that in order for us to succeed as a society, indeed we need decisive leadership. We have also learned a lot from Dr. Phosa. I want to share a few things that I have personally learned from Dr. Phosa, and I was also encouraged by elderly people to engage with him on this variety of issues. I had the occasion of advising the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development at the time, Metoko Didiza, and there were a lot of issues that were happening in the country, ranging from the amendment of the Constitution, whether, for example, there was a need to amend Section 25 of the Constitution, issues of Expropriation Act, and so forth. Metoga said, Ivan, Ponela Mathews Phosa. On these issues, we must not rush. I have learned a lot from Tate Phosa around various legal issues, but what I want to highlight, Program Director, without taking much of time, I will be doing injustice if I don't highlight these constitutional issues, because I see there are young students here. But what we learned from Tate Phosa is the proper interpretation of the Constitution. The Constitution is not written easily. Section 25 of the Constitution is written in very broad terms, and at some times I was struggling myself with the proper interpretation of Section 25(3), the factors that one needs to look into when determining a compensation that is just and equitable on expropriating property. And I had an occasion of reflecting on these number of issues with Tate Phosa, how one should approach the proper interpretation of the Constitution. And as I said also, I was a bit reluctant to engage with Tate Phosa on whether it is the correct path to amend the Constitution or whether it was correct at that point, because it appears that he held the view that there was no need to amend Section 25 of the Constitution, because the Constitution as it stands allows expropriation of property for twin purposes, that is the public purpose and also in the public interest. And you will appreciate that the Expropriation Act of 1975 was constructed in narrow terms, Tate Phosa. It only allowed the expropriation of the Constitution for a public purpose, in other words, for purposes that were connected to a governmental function, and neglected the broader imperative of expropriating property for a public purpose, which public purpose the Constitution defines it broadly to include land reform and commitment to water rights and so forth. Tate Phosa explained this complex concept of public purpose, public interest, and how we should approach the constitution properly. And the other things that one has learned from Dr. Phosa, from a legal perspective, is the proper approach to the payment of compensation that is just and equitable and expropriating property. And Dr. Phosa, we were struggling to balance these factors in Section 25 to arrive at compensation that is just and equitable in the concept of the bigger constitutional scheme. The constitutional amendment failed, and we did not think that that was a bad thing, because, as Dr. Phosa has alluded, that there was no reason for the amendment of the Constitution, because the Constitution as it stands allowed the state in any event to acquire property to advance public interest and public purpose. So Dr. Phosa, your legal acumen, your legal skills, your contribution to the country has inspired us, and particularly me as a young person from Mpumalanga. You should not be discouraged by the fact that I did not read the book. Here at TUT, we are not shy to read. We will definitely engage with the book and share our reflections and views. But we agree with you, Doctor, that we must fall into the habit of reading and writing as African people. We need to be Africans that are interrogating issues. We need to reflect on issues. We need to ask simple and difficult questions as Africans. But more importantly, we need to sort of strive at all material times to, as our own as Africans, to locate solutions, that are appropriate, to our problems that are facing the continent. But more importantly, to be the producers of knowledge, as opposed to be viewed as only the consumers. So Dr. Phosa will engage with the book. We have really, we appreciate the book. We have really also reflected on your leadership style and the things that we've been emphasizing on. I think that as young people, as scholars, as students, will have to make time to have another session to engage more broadly with the issues that Dr. Phosa has raised throughout his career as a leader, as a politician, issues ranging from the Constitution, issues ranging from the creation of a just and inclusive society. We really appreciate you for your presence here, and we are indebted to you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Chair of Council, for those insightful words. And it felt for a second that with all the legalese, we were in a law class. But thank you so much for sharing with us and giving us lessons on constitutional matters and the legal jargon. We appreciate all those efforts for those of us that are not from the law fraternity. But what we did find from our Chair of Council, that indeed, VC, he is from the furious river of student politics. So thank you for revealing that to us. Thank you, Chair. Friends, colleagues, we now move on, Brenda, to the lucky draw. How are we doing this? If you can just help us, please. But then we will take the, thank you. Can I pause now and have moments for questions? Oh, there's lots of hands. Let's see. Let's take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I hope you got your number. 12 as well. We have 11 questions, and we're going to have, please can I ask that you keep your questions short. Don't present essays before you ask the questions, because we're really running out of time. Short, to the point, because we need our guests to respond. Thank you. Over to you.
Thanks, Prof. Nalini. My name is Ntando Matebula. It's actually it's not a question. This one is appreciation. So, Prof. Dinyiko, thank you so much for bringing Dr. Phosa here. What I can say is that Dr. Phosa, I'm from Hazyview, I'm from Mahushu. You and I were much more related. What you are saying, I've been benefiting from your leadership skills. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Phosa, for this book and all your contributions into the politics of South Africa. I've been growing from learning from your character. So I was part of the graduation ceremony of the SORIC last year when we do that visual meeting. I was part of the technicians that were like doing the technical work of that graduation. So thank you so much for your wonderful work that you did into this country. Thank you.
My apologies. In my enthusiasm, as a program director, you get very enthusiastic and you want to move along and get people engaged. I sort of skipped the moment where our Vice Chancellor and Dr. Phosa need to have their fireside chat. So you know your hands. We will come back.
I think you should continue. If I have, we will, let's not disturb the flow that you have said now. You've already appointed people to speak.
Okay. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Afternoon, everyone. Or good morning in a way. My name is Samuel Sufi. So actually, from the review and how Dr. Phosa has articulated many things, saying he has witnessed power in South Africa, where he has served to advise 5 presidents who has taken the floor of South Africa. So actually, I have a question. I have 2 questions to you, Dr. Phosa, where I'm thinking, as much as many leaders in South Africa, they seem to use power on their personal benefit. I'm wondering if, because as much as you indicated, you seem to be a very honest man who tell the history or who give us, the young ones, information that we don't much know about. So I'm wondering if, as much as you have also been in contact with the president of South Africa, have you also used power or your presence to be in contact with the people in power to your own benefit? And also, as much as in 2017 you were running for presidency, I'm wondering if you had the opportunity to be the president, would we have seen a better South Africa today compared to what it is? Those are my 2 questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Banele and I'm one of the student journalists that were brought here today. So it's a pleasure to be here. Firstly, Dr. Phosa, I love how you're telling your own version of the leaderships that you had in it, you partook or part of under the past presidencies. And what I want to know is, like, backtracking to the event that happened in 2001, can you please elaborate as to what you believe was the motivation behind the allegations of you trying to overthrow, the allegations that you were trying to overthrow President Mbeki? And do you think that it somehow has a connection to you losing out on those president elections that you were a part of? So that's my question.
Good morning. My name is Polola N. Madisa from TUT-TV. Dr. Phosa, I have 3 questions for you, and I'll try to keep them as brief as possible. The first one is on perspective of power, to then say you had a front row seat to the 5 power, or like power across the 5 presidencies, right? What surprised you most about how power is gained, held, and even lost within the country? And the second one is on democracy, to then say, looking back at the journey that is chronicled in your memoir, how would you then describe the state of South Africa's democracy today? And lastly, the last one, to then say, you suggested the ANC was died, or rather buried, in Polokwane. What does that mean for the movement's identity, leadership, and even the moral authority today? Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. I am Brady Limugwena, another student journalist from TUT. Dr. Phosa, having seen the various transformations South Africa has made, how would you best describe how the book contributes to the current conversation in regards to our political landscape? Thank you.
Is it afternoon yet? Oh. Good morning. My name is Kabelo Prince Maphosa, and I'm advanced student in diploma in public affairs. So, reflecting back on, you used to be an ANC member, or still an ANC member back then. Considering that ANC is no longer in a majority party, but is in the Governance of National Unity, NGU. So how do you assess the current state of the ANC, considering your experience working with various leaders? And what advice will you give to its current leadership?
Greetings to House at Large. My name is Zusepe. My surname is Maliwa, a student of public affairs. My question to you, Dr. Phosa, is why is it important for young people to understand how power operates within political parties and government institutions, and what roles can it play in holding leaders accountable? Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Tembisile Adelaide Sibanda. I'm one of the student leaders, the chair of chairs, under the directorate of ALCL. Also, I'm working at DQP. And my question is that, okay, my question is that, how do you prioritize your own development and growth as a leader? First question. And then the second question, it says, what role do you think empathy plays in leadership, and how do you demonstrate empathy in your practice?
Greetings, everyone. My name is Tepuso Cheho, and I'm doing my advanced diploma in public affairs. My question is, how does Dr. Phosa address the issues of corruption, state capture, and moral decay within the government or the ANC since you've served for so long? And my second question is, what messages does the book or Dr. Phosa as an individual send about political accountability and the future of the South African democracy?
Good afternoon. My name is Amkhalan Ramatena, postgrad journalism student. And my question is about your writing process. Maybe the language practice students might share the same sentiment. As a man that knows so many languages and writes in these different languages, which language do you think in before writing? And do you think in a specific language, write in it and then translate your work, or do you just go with the flow? Thank you.
Dumelang le kae. We're from Exclusive Books, and my question is not just a question but an admiration to wena. They say absolute power corrupts absolutely. My question to you is that Kherensiana, all of us, yes, we've got different languages, we've got different parties, but how do we come together as one? Because there's sort of people who come together and they create something, but we are divided. And they came with a divide and conquer when they came in 18 what. But what do we do now as we're going forward as the youth to inspire us to keep on going forward? Because me as a black child who's inspired, I want to do more, but how do we do more without the resources? How do I plant? How do I do that? I want to buy a book. We come here to celebrate literacy. We come here to sell that. But how can we afford that and do that and support you without all those things around? I just want to say thank you, ke a leboga, because we need more of these conversations. We really do. Because if we don't have these conversations, how will we be inspired? How will we know who there were people on the undergrounds doing the things? And how do I go and do the things on the overground instead of underground? Thank you so much.
Good morning. Yes, good morning. Dr. Phosa, my name is Luvuyo. I also stay in Mpumalanga in White River, by the way. So I'm the Deputy President General. Well, my first question is about you advised the President Mandela, President Mbeki, you advised the President Zuma, and now it's President Ramaphosa. How old do you think a president should be? Yeah, so the second one was about, as you allude about advising presidents, I didn't hear any insight about the former president, Kgalema Motlanthe. Sure, thank you.
Thank you, students and colleagues, for such a wonderful range of questions. We have to stop there and give Dr. Phosa a chance to respond. Over to you, Dr. Phosa.
First, I must say thank you very much for all the questions, starting from Mahushu to all over. Baba Mathews, thank you very much for your question. My father was a school principal at Mtimba in Mahushu. I stayed there a bit with him when I was not at boarding school. Thank you for your compliments, sir. Appreciate it. Samuel, how have you ever benefited from using power? I've always been against anyone, especially public servants, benefiting from power. I stand against it completely. If you follow the history of Mpumalanga province, and I say it with pride, until today, I'm the only former premier who fired 3 MECs for corruption. I'm the only one. The only one. The others let them hang around there. I never allowed that. And I'll tell you how I used to fire them. You're going to smile again and laugh. I used to sit down with an MEC who wronged the public. Because it was always going to wrong the public and say, Samala, sit here. This is what has happened. And you are playing this role in this. What do you think I should do? What would you do if you were in my position? I said, the MEC will say, I'll resign. I said, what? I'm waiting for a letter. In all the 3 cases, they resigned on their own. They announced their own resignation. I didn't announce that I fired them. But it's a position I took against abuse of power. I'll give another example, and I won't mention this MEC because he's still alive. He used to interfere with tenders and compete with black players. right, which were entitled to tender legally, as long as they are not corrupt. Now, these black entrepreneurs got angry with him. They reported the matter to me. I said, guys, let's be brave against corruption. I'm going to call a public meeting in a hall. And the MECs will sit here in front. You will point out this MEC who's worrying you. You know what happened in that hall? They said, MEC M, this one, asked for 10%. They pointed him out. That put the fear of God in the other MECs. You understand? So you got to have a transparent way of fighting corruption. And the first people who should be the casualties are the ministers, MECs, and officials. Those should be the first casualty, but the rot starts there. The fish rots at the head. That's what it is. So I can tell you that now. If you had an opportunity to be a president, I would clean the deck. I would clean the deck the same way I did when I was a premier. We got Zondo Commission. Maybe you don't know, but I'll tell you because you don't know. 91 people have been identified as people who must be investigated. I'm choosing my words carefully. Ask me if they are being investigated. I phoned the head of the Hawks. I said, Advocate Lebea, have you got instructions to investigate this 91 people? You know what the answer was? No. Wrong. They must be investigated. If something is found, they must be prosecuted. And if they are found guilty, they must be shown the door. I will do that. It will put the fear of God in the thief or the potential thieves. I will do that. And then people are going to be afraid. You see, here we don't cut people's hands like in other Arab countries. If I was there, I'll cut their hands. Because in this hand, that's steel. So I'm just giving an example. If I was the president of fight corruption, I'll make, but corruption takes money for, you must look at our towns. What happened to the money which must build the roads? The Auditor General tells you what happened to it. He says more than 250 billion has disappeared. When did money grow legs? When? And where did it go? It's in the hands of those who are controlling it in budget. They direct it in the wrong way. I can go on and tell you a story of what I will do, but I will not tolerate nonsense. I can tell you now, I'll do exactly what I did as a premier. I'll clean up. And you don't become popular when you do that. But leadership is not a popularity stake. It's not a contest for popularity. We must just understand that. The price you pay is sometimes a bullet. Take it. But don't compromise the interests of the public because you just want to be popular. No, it's too expensive for the public. We get tapped best on the road because of potholes. The load shedding happens all the time. People steal power. South Africans are very complicated. How do you steal power? Okay, Banel, what motivated the plot? My brother, I don't know. I think it's fear of the unknown. If you read Machiavelli, The Prince, and Professor has read it. The Prince, it's a very small book. Please read it. You'll finish it in an hour. It talks about the principle of lopping off the top. That no one must be my same height. They must all be lower than me. So politicians tend to fear their own shadows. They listen, sad. And they see a threat where there's no threat. You know, when the story of the plot came up, Mandela phoned all of us and he said, I don't believe this. He went public and said so. And he was right. Steve Chatham, may his soul rest in peace, like the professor said. When he announced it, everybody was shocked. Our kids were vilified at school. Oh, your father wants to kill the president. It was sad. It was not a serious joke. It was sad. But when Steve Chatham found out that it was not true, he called me. He says to me, well, Matthew, this was not true. I'm so sorry. Can we have a press conference together and tell the country? You know what I said? I can be very sarcastic if I want. Steve, when you announced that we're plotting, you're alone on TV. Go back. Go back and announce that we're not guilty of anything. And they did that. You wanted to take cover with us being as if we're friends. Okay, we're friends, but you accused us falsely. Go and unaccuse us falsely if there's such a word in English. So that's the story. There was no motivation. Madisa, I'd like to come to your questions later. I hope I don't forget. There are so many nice questions here as well. Mukwena, Madam Mukwena. The book contributes towards what I said in my opening remarks. In ensuring that the generation which was not born before 94 knows what happens from 94. The generation which was born in 94, because it was young people, they wouldn't have had the type of information which I'm sharing. So that there's no gaps in the knowledge in terms of those who were born before 94 and those who were born from 94. So it's sharing of information, sharing of lessons, sharing of experiences, positive and negative, so that you're able to say, these are the good examples, these are the bad examples. That is what we're trying to do here, sharing and building characters. Kabel, member of the GNU, state of the ANC. The ANC was punished by the voters, like anyone would be punished by the voters from 57 to 40. And I'm one of those who read polls, who believe in polls. We predicted it. I was out by 4. I thought the ANC would get 44. It got 40. It didn't even went lower. So GNU is a convenient solution for now. So I don't want to go deep into it. I've got views about it. It's an all-long discussion. But what is the state of the ANC now? The state of the ANC is in chaos. Total chaos. And then if you talk to NEC members, they ask me, and I've loved the NEC, I've served for more than 30 years. They said, guys, we don't know where we're going. It's like a train going to hit a wall, and you pray that the wall will move. But the wall won't move. You understand what I'm saying? We asked me, I'm a full member of the ANC. I've not joined MK. So but what I forgot to tell my main input is that MK is also an offspring of Polokwane. If you do more analysis, because the bitterness which Zuma has, it continues into MK. So he says, I'm the ANC, it's true ANC. Cyril is not the true ANC because he can't jive, he can't sing. What is the essence of MK? So poor Cyril, with all the substance he has, we have to characterize it correctly, but it continues from Polokwane. The professor is laughing himself to death. Madisa, you're saying, how does power gain? What is it? Can you repeat your question? Madisa.
All right, Doctor, I was asking to say you had a front row seat to power across 5 presidencies.
Yeah.
What then surprised you most about how power is gained, held, and even lost within the country?
Let me tell you what surprised me most. It's a young politician coming up. And I'll give you an example of Thabo Mbeki and Zuma. Those guys were like twin brothers. They were very close in exile. They'll even wear the same, almost same type of clothes. It's like when they woke up in the morning, they wear Cuban shirts and gray flannel. They look alike. They come back together and start the constitution. What went wrong? Power and money. They became enemies because of all those things. Zuma was accused of the arms deal, and then he was relieved from his duties. Then he started to factionalize the ANC against Thabo Mbeki. These two brothers started not talking to one another like before. Power and money. They are two evils. These people fight for power and they become enemies, but they were brothers. Tabile, the chair. How do you prioritize growth? Is there any empathy? Yes, there's empathy. I think from the example I gave of Mandela, you could see a lot of empathy. And Sisulu. Yeah, empathy should be part of our character. And we should share generously and build other characters. My grandfather taught me, when you give, don't want something in return. You must learn to give without expecting something in return. You must give because you want to give and you want to make other person's life better. You know. The piece of let's capture ANC accountability. I've answered you, haven't I? The piece of I've talked about corruption, state capture. I have. Okay, you happy? Amogalang languages. I'm sitting next to Professor Maluleke. He says, you should have asked, when I dream, in what language do I dream? It's correct, it's correct. I write poetry in 3 languages. In Sotho, in Afrikaans, and in English. I write poems spontaneously. And when I decide to write a poem in a particular language, I'll write it. If you want me to write a poem in Tonga, I'll write it. I'll try and write it. If you want me to try and write a poem in Portuguese, I'll try and write it, even if you wrote in Portuguese. I'll try and write it. I love languages, you know. And there's no one who speaks to me in this country whose language I know I don't answer in that language. Mpumalanga had different languages. There corner there's Tonga and Swati. Go deep pushback race. It's Tonga, Pulana, Babulabula. This side coming up is in Ndebele, by Togoza, all these things. This side is Zulu, interpretive. You wake up in the morning, you're a premier. When you start in commerce, you speak Tonga and Swazi. When you go to pushback race, Pulana. So you get used to it. You don't insult an audience with a language they will not understand, as far as I'm concerned. You show respect. When you speak someone's language, you go into their hearts. So, madam, I write in the language I feel I want to write. I write what I want. You understand what it means? I don't insult in my poems. I praise. We brought up about praise songs, you know. But when I wrote my poetry in Afrikaans in 1974, 76 at the University of Limpopo, I was surprised. For 76, Afrikaans was the issue in the township, and I chose to read my poetry in Afrikaans at the University Hall. I got a standing ovation at the University Hall, and the following day, Rand Daily Mail put this story. A new Afrikaans poet were born. They didn't object the language. It was a protest poetry. They liked that. It was pointing a finger at the system which was oppressing us. That's why they liked that, the poems, the message, not the language. So it depends on how you couch your situation. I'm very happy to be alive to see my poetry being prescribed from grade 1 to matric. Witness to Power is already prescribed at UJ for the 3rd year history students. Already. So I'm very happy because it shows that the bookshelves which are there are beginning to be challenged by new literature. What he writes, what I write. Because it's relevant. You don't want to study dead history, if I may put it that way. Of course, it's history, but what does it teach you today in the modern South Africa? She asked me, what are the frontiers of knowledge we should go for in tertiary education? I said STEM. He said, no, STEAM. I agree with a line of emphasis as a professor. I agree, it's STEAM, professor. So that we embrace artificial intelligence, we embrace innovation, automation, and all that thing. I'm in the business world, and in some of the business where I am involved, you know, we drive production through those new knowledge. And it's relevant knowledge. You can have all the degrees in the world, but if it's irrelevant to the market out there, you will be unemployed. You have to say, what is it that I'm studying? What is the content? How relevant is it to our lives? You know, and focus on what will be relevant to our lives. We must not stop studying natural sciences. We need to. They're very important. But we should also at the end have a cutting thrust on STEM. And I don't want to apologize, because you have to embrace artificial intelligence. You use it across the board. You know, some people don't like those machines that walk like this. But boy, that's how you dance today. They walk like the way you dance. So, languages, we must use them and be proud of our languages. And then we must never agree to be divided along tribal or racial lines. Never. Never, 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 ever. It's very painful if you look at the continent today. What created the war in Burundi is Hutus and Tutsi. And in Rwanda, same thing. People killed one another because of tribalism. We are brothers, we are sisters. We must never, the apartheid system was aimed at creating those divisions. And the new system, and we should not undermine the new system. We must try and integrate ourselves. You can't come and tell me because I'm a song, I'm not entitled to be the president. I am entitled to be president if that is what the people want. You understand? Or whatever. So also must be bigger than our little tribal roots and become South Africans. Those who know me know that when you use the word tribal, I cringe. But I fought against it. I took an AK-47 to fight against separate development and to say our people are equal before the law and are equal before God. And that is very important. We're all the same. You can't tell me, oh, that tribe is more clever than this tribe. It's unscientific, seriously. It's unscientific. You can't prove it. You know. So there we go. Divisions should not be allowed. The question which you raised, the tail question is, how do we do this without resources? The answer is they must stop stealing the resources and invest in education. That's the answer. The resources are there. I mean, 250 billion, growing legs and going to the bush. Sure. And then I hope that I haven't skipped any questions. There were many, né? Luvuyo from White River. How old should the president be? I think today, quite honestly, the president should be as young as possible. Yeah, we need youth. Look at Senegal. A population of more than 25%, 60%. They've elected the president who's 43 years old. How fresh, it's very fresh, né? We should espouse youth in leadership and not be against youth and say, you are in song, well, Salomunian. What's that? Allow youth to shine and to lead with bright ideas. Let them make their own mistakes and learn from those mistakes. I don't think they should be, Luvuyo, you think I've forgotten? Luvuyo, Kgalema Mtanti is a very calm-headed leader. I've worked with him when he was still the secretary of NUM, right? When I was Premier from Mpumalanga. Even Kwede Mantati was also the secretary of NUM. I worked with all of them, you know. So Kgalema Mtanti intervened in the story of the plot. I didn't deal with it, Professor didn't deal with it. When it was hot, the fire was flying high. He was the most cool-headed person who said to Tokyo and said, guys, cool down. Let the law take its course, right? Let them investigate you if you believe you're innocent. Very calm. And when we decided that, actually this is very important, that Thabo Mbeki goes, there was a question that said, who follows him in the remaining 6 months? And someone said Zuma. We said, no ways. They're going to say he was making a nest for himself. He must park there and wait. We'll put Kgalema to hold the fort until Zuma must go and campaign an election and win his own election and come to power on his own mandate. It's more cleaner that way. It doesn't look like he pushed this one for himself. He must park there, and he agreed to park. Kgalema was the stabilizing factor, Luvuyo, in that situation, if you want a long and short of it. And Tando, I've dealt with you, Vanele, the plot, Madisa, we discussed, Mukwena, Kabelo, Gunu. I didn't get the name of, how is it for the youth accountability? I don't know. I didn't get the name. What did you say? What's the surname? What is your name? What did you ask? I missed something. You can't.
I was asking, why is it important for youth, for young people to understand how power operates within political parties and government, and what role can they play in holding leaders accountable? Thank you, Doctor.
I've already given part of the answer.
Yes.
Very affirming that the youth must stay, and I spoke from my own experience. The youth must stay vigilant and not allow the elders to do wrong things. They mustn't. Yesterday I was speaking to one of the guys from the University of UCT about some aspect of a matter which looks like corrupt. He says, you know what? Tomorrow I'll march with the youth to correct the wrong. You understand? The youth must take a stand. Professor will tell you how we grew up. We always took a stand against the wrong things in society, against what people thought was an imposition of Africans on education, against many things. Fees must fall was a statement. And I had an opportunity to address fees must fall students, and I had fun with them. And I gave them the history of the student movement in the country, from all those days of Steve Biko throughout, sharing with them the experience of history. But the youth cannot remain silent in the face of wrongdoing. The youth must be the conscience of the nation. Always. You can't shut up when things are wrong. Who else have I not answered? I'm trying to be fair. Who else? The way I answered you, Tabsile, I've answered you. Okay, everyone I try to answer and call by name. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Phosa, for thoroughly engaging with these very, very smart students in our university. They ask deep, thoughtful questions, and I'm sure they appreciate your responses. So I'm sure I've got the program correct now, and we've come, Brenda, to the lucky draw, and I believe I can do 10 draws. So there are 10 books up for you to get your hands on and read, together with the Chair of Council, who's also going to start reading today. And the first one is Cornelia Ntabiseng Tongwena. Who's going to give her the book, Brenda? Can I call the next one? Because there's 10. Panele Chontini. And you are checking, I'm shaking the box. There, yes. I'm going to have a challenge pronouncing this. Genius Molefe. Yay. How many do we have, Brenda? I'm losing count. 3. Number 4, Ntokozo Koza. Number 5, Nontando Mashoni. I can't read this. This says exclusive books. So that wasn't a name. Solofelo Sebola. How many more? That was 6. Thank you for counting. Langa Mklaus. Langa Miklius. I'm not quite sure. Langa is not here. Zianda. How many more? How many more? 7. Okay. 8. Pakamisa Witty. 9. Lerato Raswiwi. 'And the last one, Brandon Lee Mokoena. So those are our 10 lucky winners of these wonderful books. I hope you will go back tonight and be engaged. And now, while that photo op is happening, it is my pleasure to invite our Executive Dean from the Faculty of Humanities, who will enthrall us with some closing remarks. Professor Mashupe Maseremule.
Good afternoon. I hope you're going to read those books. Tomorrow I need a review from each one of you. Dr. Mathews Phosa, indeed, history does not have blank pages. But what I realize is that the more we try to fill the voids of history, the more we create many. And we have the obligation to continue filling them. So, we are still going to have many books. And I'm glad, Dr. Phosa, that you are still going to write many more books. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess my job is simple, as it is just to say thank you for being here. Thank you very much, Dr. Phosa, once more, for writing this book. And thank you, VC, for always creating an opportunity to talk about the books. To our students and staff, you have been an engaging audience that befits this discursive space, which is important in institutionalizing this university as a site of ideation, for which intellectualism must be its brand, nothing else. In the space I inhabit, thank you is not simply about saying so, especially in the event organized to celebrate an idea that has morphed into a book, which today we have been in dialogue with. In saying this, let me hasten to emphasize the importance of writing a book, which is no small feat, but an act of generosity. Books, as outputs of ideation, organize our thoughts to explain our existential realities and ignite humanity's imaginative ingenuity in the search for the solution to the challenges that societal evolution spawns. So, we cannot thank you more, Dr. Phosa, for aiding the version of what you witness to the searching narratives that seeks to instill a sense of historical consciousness in our public intellectual space. Especially as a dean of the Faculty of Humanities, whose job is to facilitate critical thinking, to understand human culture and history better. I always marvel at new publications hitting the shelves of bookstores and libraries, especially those authored by people like you, who were closer to the events that shaped the history of this country. I was with the VC last week in one interesting event where one of us basically said that, I will not use his words, but basically said that politicians cannot write. I was surprised by your literary prowess, coupled with the ultimate sophistication of its simplicity in the storyline of your book, taking the reader to your formative years and link this to the liberation struggle, which you became part of, including how this brought about democracy and the complexity of managing this system of government. As I read the book, Dr. Phosa, I noticed something very interesting. And I agree that you are not angry in your book, but you could not hide your sadness at the state of your organization and the tenets of events regarding the state of our democracy, where you are increasingly, wittingly or unwittingly, you are increasingly amplifying the voice of the voiceless in asking a fundamentally important question to your organization. And you are saying, I hear you saying to your organization, comrades, whose democracy is this? Is it the one we fought for? I hear you asking this question between the lines of the storyline of the book. I hear you being disturbed by the high level of poverty and inequality and unemployment. The politics of your organization, which had degenerated into abyss. Professor Maluleke did justice as an interlocutor in dissecting the context, the contents of the book in conversation with you. And the audience did likewise. And let me also, Professor Motley, brag a bit that the profundity of the questions that emerged from the audience came from my students. All I can say, as I thank everybody for being here, is that books of these types are not only about the subject of their composition, but represent commitment, Dr. Phosa, to the decoloniality agenda. And this is because in many ways, it debunks the colonial mythologies and stereotypes about the inability of other races to write their own stories. This is a lie. It is a lie. It is a lie. However, I'm saying this without any fear of contradictions, conscious of my responsibility as a professor to question yourself that if we do not read the books that the likes of Phosa write, we will make this lie to sound like the truth. When I see your book and many others of your ilk, I'm becoming content as increasingly we are becoming authors of our own experiences, telling the tales of our own travails in our own context for our own people. You emphasized that point, and I was very happy. And the profundity of our narratives lies in the extent of their contradictions. I know, Dr. Phosa, that Thabo Mbeki will fundamentally differ with a version of your story in your witness to power, especially on the Libyan question. And there are many who have their own versions of their witness of power. And this is what I like about books that do not hold back, because they disrupt the tyranny of monologuing, which must never be allowed to set in, and disrupt the discursive praxis of pluralism of thoughts. Let's rather go for dialoguing as a function of a deeper reflection and imagination. Allow me, Dr. Phosa, on your behalf, to say to all who are here, and many others out there, go buy the book, read it, and take the conversation further. Thank you so much.
You'd have to admit that was the best way to conclude this morning's session. Thank you, Prof. There's never, ever any doubt that Prof. Maserimule can wrap up the session with such dynamism. Thank you so much. So everyone, as we conclude today's event, I want to thank you for being so engaged, for the bold and robust conversation. This is the only way that we can grow as a university and indeed as a nation. Thank you, Dr. Phosa, for spending your time with us. We appreciate you. Thank you, VC, for your direction with this project, and thank you all for being present. Have a wonderful day further. Thank you.